Hi! It's me again, and today I'm back to reading fanfiction. For multiple of my friends this time, because they all requested an audio format because they all couldn't be bothered to read. So this is part of a series. The series is called Son of Ginger, and this specific piece is called Sanctus Spiritus. It is written by Daddy's Whiskey, aka me, and the tags are tooth-rotting fluff, and religious imagery and symbolism, and just religious themes in general, just heads up for that. And the summary is, all plans of the instrumentality have failed. Angels left the earth alone. Koru stayed with Shinji in an amazing world under the sun, yellow and blazing pleasantly like ginger, and this is good enough in itself. And as you can guess, it's about Koru and Shinji. Yeah. So yeah, let's read the thing. The building was delightful. Slopes of metal, shining in the sun and reflecting skies blue, were rapidly striving upwards. Angles and verges and smooth flatnesses sang loudly with a ringing choir of such voices that could only be seen. The composition looked like the second moon, the one who steals sunlight and brags about it like it's its own. Every edge is an imitation of a ray. The vigorous dance of the building was following an obelisk of a streamlined shape, crowned with a cross. It looked so solemn and pompous that it took one's breath away, and tears could roll onto one's eyes. "So that's why you wanted to bring me for a date?" Koru asked thoughtfully, and when Shinji blinked shyly, added, "This looks like some kind of nerve building." Shinji giggled and dragged Koru to the cathedral, only letting go of his bony marble hand at the very entrance. The inside wasn't lacking in awesomeness. The simple interior emphasized the church's impressive size, inside of which people seemed to be breadcrumbs. A Gothic tradition, a way to show man's simplicity and misery in front of an ineffable, almighty, omnipresent yet merciful God, and in this case as a tribute to the mother of his earthly incarnation, to her love and grief. As if a road of heavenly light, a stained glass window descended to the altar. It was unimaginably majestic. It was delightful. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Shinji wondered, aspirated, and he indeed was right. Going to old Tokyo for a weekend for this was worth it. "Yes, I like it a lot too," Koru uttered, half whispering. Their words were short, intimate, but the church's vaults distorted them and made them louder than the speakers expected. Yes, God sees and hears everything. Maybe someone doesn't shy away from that. People were hurriedly leaving after the morning mass. The two went deeper inside and sat down in the long pews. Koru leaned backwards and put his head up to see the vaults and the ceiling better, which were unbelievably far away, and Shinji sat on the very edge of the pew, hooking his hands together and squeezing them between his knees. "Gorgeous. I knew you'd like it. You already said you're interested in architecture," Shinji smiled. Koru chuckled. Lillian's architecture was truly amazing. The way aesthetics and practicality combine, how they intertwine, mix and harmonize like two melodies. Koru transferred his gaze to the stained glass, then to the altar drapery, to the blinding golden candlesticks, and to the cross above them. A tool of torture became a symbol of forgiveness and love. How ironic. "And look at that organ," Koru said slowly, stretching his thin legs, and Shinji suddenly turned around with comical surprise to get a better look at it. It enchanted with its height, pipes, and maybe with the way it sounded. "It's probably beautiful when they play it," Shinji said quietly. "I wonder if they have a church choir." "They should. What are they going to do without it?" Kororo mumbled in confusion, and realized that he doesn't have an answer for the first time in a while, and doesn't know much about the topic. The choir sounds stunning. It adds such atmosphere, Shinji pronounced in a dreamy voice, tilting his head, which could only make Kororo's face melt with a smile. Yes, I'd like to listen to them play Bach. Yeah, you listen to him too, Shinji continued, flapping his eyelashes, similar to the ends of brushes used to paint icons. I can play some of his compositions on my cello. Is it so? Then I'll have to sing, Kororo smirked. I think you look cute in a chorister's robe, Shinji giggled and turned away his face, coloured red, leaving Kororo with this image in his head. If he were a chorister, Shinji would appear here regularly. He'd arrive early, sit in the front row, and fidget about in anticipation. He'd also gift self-made postcards for Christmas, Easter, Good Friday, and all the other important and not so important holidays. Only the imagined church was different. Little, wooden and cozy like those in Europe. Kororo rubbed his shoulder over Shinji's. He smelled of cotton, cinnamon, and a tiny bit of the sea. Kororo wanted to hug him, but intrusive looks were sharper than daggers. Kororo and Shinji will have their time later. Do you believe in God? Kororo shivered from an unexpected question. He knew that sooner or later he'll be asked about it, but he would have never guessed that he will hear this from timid Shinji on a hot summer afternoon while sitting on a church pew. Yes, Kororo calmly replied, looking at him. A living interest wallowed in Shinji's eyes like they were baptistries out of benitoite. It felt like shortly this interest would crawl out of the blue and will touch his face with its curious hands. Of course, the 17th angel's opinion on this question was as important as it comes, but Shinji looked surprised, even a little bit shocked. He squeezed a fragile "oh" out of himself and looked away frowning. I don't, Shinji murmured. Kororo knew why. Shinji had it written on his face. Is that because you don't feel his love? The angel parried. A grave silence prevailed. Kororo could hear Shinji's watch ticking. A tourist's camera clicked in the distance. A pew behind creaked under someone's weight. Shinji sat there tense, rubbing one palm of his hand over the other, as if they were no palms at all, but rather sponges with needles stuck in them, used for self-excruciation on the days of penitence. And his arms weren't arms, but rather heavy chains for mortification of the flesh, his body a sillis. Shinji probably felt like a suffering that annoys everyone it touches, spoils everything it looks at. But he was a person, not a human's, but God's creation, the son of Lilith, the son of Yui Ikari. Kororo looked around, absorbing information greedily, with flaming scarlet eyes. A priest talking to a layman in the corner, a foreigner with a camera, too busy with wood carvings on the pews in front. Right now, no one will look at them. Kororo moved closer, carefully took Shinji's hand so no one could see. He flinched, perhaps from a sudden warmth streaming from the hand to the rest of his body, relaxed a little, blushed. I'm sure he loves you, Kororo said softly, pushing a strand of silvery smoky hair behind his ear and trying to convey with his whole being that affection and that altruistic urge to care that he felt towards Shinji. Then why does he make me and others suffer? He exclaimed with a taste of despair in his voice, and immediately looked around fearfully, as if trying to see where was now the light echo of his raised voice. Everyone suffers sooner or later, Shinji, but everyone has their own way. For somebody, it's a test of their faith. For someone, a punishment. for someone else something entirely different. Kaoru couldn't always express his emotions meaningfully, but he tried to emit peace, compassion, and, well, that love they were discussing right now. I know you don't think of yourself as special, but this is far from the truth. You are sweet, resilient, kind, and so human. Shinji blushed more. His cheeks were of the same shade as the velvet fabric that covered the altar that July. Shinji was like a chalice that Kaoru was slowly trying to fill up with happiness and pleasant emotions, but so it wouldn't go empty if he wasn't nearby. Kaoru was prepared, if needed, to do it all the time, to not eat, to not sleep, only to take care of Shinji, this remarkable boy that always looks at him with those forever sad eyes, and seemingly doesn't understand how much goodness he brings into the world. God loves you, Kaoru continued, rubbing Shinji's hand with his thumb and smiling as softly as he possibly could. He loves you so much, he trusted you with such a difficult fate. Yes, you suffered a lot, but through your suffering, you saved all of us. Nerve, Major Katsuragi, Dr. Akagi, Langley, and Ayanami wouldn't have made it without you. You're almost like him. Kaoru tilted his head in the direction of the cross. Another click of the camera could be heard, while on a different side, a heavy door opened reluctantly. No, you're lying. You can't compare me to him, Shinji answered embarrassedly. I will never be as important. Let me disagree with you. You not being a deity doesn't mean you're not important. You're not known by your name and appearance, as all pilots are, because the press has to keep you anonymous before you are of age. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to make a single step without Lillian's attention. You are a hero, Shinji. You are loved. We all love you. The angels won't attack anymore. You won't suffer again. After this, you will be able to overcome everything that will be waiting for you. The worst is already behind. In his last words, Kaoru heard the voice of Yui, as if she was with them again for a minute, used his vocal cords to send a telegram, appearing as warmth in the air in order to visit Shinji. Thank you, Kaoru. Thank you for saying it like no one else did, Shinji whispered. The angel couldn't help it, and hugged him so tight that their joints cracked in unison, like beads on a rosary. Everybody in the church tried so hard not to stare at them that their awkwardness and bewilderment clouded the space like caustic smoke from a thurible. Their swarming thoughts had the type of smell that was more potent than frankincense and mirth. Kaoru only pressed Shinji closer and stroked his silky hair. He was ready to turn anyone who would ponder hurting Shinji into a pillar of salt that would only harmlessly shimmer in the sun, and maybe, in a couple of decades, it will be made into a lamp. What will the visitors do? They can't stab them right in the middle of a church. They don't have the guts for that. The priest with a bald spot and waxy yellowish face approached them. He already wanted to say something, but Kaoru gazed at him in a way that would make anyone's heart sink and cold sweat appear on their forehead. Kaoru gazed at the priest, not with the eyes of a human, but with the eyes of the 17th angel, as if shortly 6 huge wings would be seen. Kaoru could have levitated like a small feather, clutching Shinji tenaciously in his arms, and crushed them all into powder, grind them all into dust, throw a ray of light at them that would turn their heads inside out, and in a second will put them in the same condition in which Oscar Langley was now trying to get rid of. There were rumors that she was already feeling better, but everyone knew that one could not fully heal from that. What is it? Shinji whispered, and his shoulders grew tense, his nose hid in Kaoru's shoulder. He was definitely at least feeling odd. Nothing. The clergyman just wanted to talk to us, but but it seems he changed his mind, Kaoru said calmly, tilting his head to Shinji. The angel looked at the priest, who stood still, again, so he could see him better, to imprint in his nightmares. Sunlight fell on one side of Kaoru's face, so one eye of his looked like dark wine and another one bright like real blood of the Eucharist. "Should we go?" Shinji asked, pulling away from Kaoru, but still tightly holding his waist, looking into his face with fatigue, seemingly reading the remaining grains of wrath and aiming them at himself. "Let's go," Kaoru smiled, and all hesitation in the eyes opposite of him dissolved. The angel put his hand on Shinji's shoulder, not letting him out of sight. He had to not see the alabaster eyes of visitors directed at them. The clergyman was in fear praying to Mother Mary. "You know, I used to think I'll get crucified too before," Kaoru spoke, not letting Shinji notice what's happening around them. "Why is it so?" Shinji went excited. "I thought this is what Lilin do to those who are conceived immaculately." Shinji laughed sincerely, and the sun streamed on his face when Kaoru opened the door in front of him in a caring way, going after him. Before vanishing, Kaoru turned around and examined the church for the last time. Some visitors, perhaps the most impudent ones, were still staring at those leaving. Kaoru was almost shining with white, glowing with rage and unlove towards these people. Blood boiled in his human body and hummed in his head. The tips of his fingers pulsated. His heartbeat was like church bells ringing. "Curse upon all of you," the angel hissed, and everyone who was looking turned around almost at the same time. "This church won't feel to them as exalted and light. On the contrary, the vaults will be ready to crush them, the pews will clench their sides, the candles will burn them, and their sleep will be restless. Repentance might help." Kaoru disappeared behind the door and went after Shinji, as if nothing had happened. The breeze was warm. The trees rustled in a welcoming manner with bright green leaves, similar to stained glass. Someone was playing the guitar across the road. Kaoru thought of giving them some spare change. Shinji stretched and yawned like a kitten. "I want cotton candy," he said. "I suggest we have a proper meal, get your cotton candy, and then go for a walk on the embankment. I wanted to breathe with some sea air." Kaoru went for a compromise. "Sounds great." They went their way, sometimes furtively holding hands. The wind ruffled their hair, the sun warmed them up. Very soon they will have to pack their things and go home, and school will start next week. Maybe sometime Kaoru will tell Shinji about how they were looked at in the cathedral. Maybe he won't. He wasn't sure about this yet. Yeah, that was it.